My earliest memories are of being on the farm and working with my parents, my uncles. It was just always really fun to get out there with the cows, with the tractors, and it's just always been a goal and passion. Years ago, there were multiple buyers looking for milk. So you'd have co-ops, you'd have private buyers, you'd have a cheese factory, and there was never a question that you could sell your milk.
Vertical integration started happening in the 60s. We saw that first in poultry, then we saw it happen in pork, and now we're seeing it happen in dairy. And dairy held out for a long time because of the sheer number in Wisconsin of independent dairy farmers and independent cheese factories and milk processing plants.
If you can understand and appreciate diversification of your stock portfolio, then you should understand that if you are in the food business, that the best of all possible scenarios for you is that you have many customers and that you have many suppliers. Because as soon as you have only a couple suppliers, then you're at their beck and call and they control you. And as soon as you have only a few customers, then you're at their beck and call and they control you and they set the price.
Wisconsin Farmers Union and its members are really concerned about the influence of economic power in the United States and how the rise of monopolies and the concentration and consolidation that's occurring in the agriculture sector is really hurting independent farmers and destroying rural communities. Our goal here is to capture how issues like monopolies and multinational corporations are really influencing real people in rural America.
So you can't just be an outright abusive monopoly. And so the practices today are disguised. They're disguised in language that makes it seem like the activity is pro-competitive and promotes a lower price and relies upon economy of scale.
If you really lock into say a dairy contract where you're talking about tanker loads of milk, the bankers will start to control like what size of a herd you need, how much milk you need to produce, and I've just seen where some farmers have just gotten into a spiral of making a lot of decisions based on what the bankers tell them is their proper herd size versus what might be more appropriate for the landscape.
We've lost thousands and thousands of farms with the same pattern is occurring. It's not about a farmer who may or may not have the economic or the financial wherewithal to manage their business. It's far beyond that. It's because there are structural forces that are creating an unfair market for them to operate in.
At every step of the way, if someone can come in overcapitalized and overproduce for some period of time using classic business practices that have driven out smaller producers and consolidated other industries, then the small farm is never going to be able to outgrow that.
People are going under 800 farms in a year. That's not reasonable at all. And that's an indicator of our economy in general. Outside of agriculture, this is going to keep going.
One of the things that to me is a tragedy is when I see a neighbor go out of business, and we just lose so much because of market forces, getting too low of a price for too long. They ultimately lose a way of life.
Farming is emotional. It's part of you. It's part of who you are and your identity, so it's not that easy to give it up. And that's why we need to be concerned about mental health of our farmers right now, because they are not seeing another option to go into or another direction to take their business because it's impossible to break into markets.
If we look at risk and we say that there's risk inherent in producing food, then if we put all our food in one basket, then we've consolidated that risk. And so in the inevitable moment when there's a problem, That problem is now multiplied by the scale of that consolidation.
Before you purchase things, you ask the question, whose interests are served? One of the easiest roads for people to go is just to buy direct from a farmer. That's going right into their pocket and cutting out any middlemen.
I think that our agricultural economy is not necessarily going to collapse, but it's definitely going to change. And we can go one of two ways. We can empty the landscape of all independent farmers. And this is a projection that, like, within 20 years, Wisconsin might only have like 4 dairy farms.
You know, right now in the state of Wisconsin, the Attorney General's office doesn't really look at Wisconsin-based antitrust. They sign on to federal cases predominantly. Why aren't the empowered district attorneys in every single county using their office and their power to address these disparities and consolidation in their own county?
Farmers are a pretty independent bunch, and so I can't believe that we would allow this to happen, but it seems that we have through not working cooperatively. That mindset, that mentality has to stop, it has to reverse. We need to support each other and bring each other up and know that there are places for every kind of agriculture, except for giant mega farms, which has no place at all.